Val, I believe you're up.
Thank you. I wasn't able to unmute myself. Good evening. Thank you everybody for joining us. This is our second COVID Real Talk panel in a series. This COVID Real Talk panel is focusing on mental health and the effects that mental health has had on students and parents. This panel is co-hosted by Health Equity Solutions and the YWCA of New Britain. And tonight's discussion is going to focus on 5 discussion topics that surround how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected people's mental health. So I really want to thank everyone for joining us. And I really hope that you feel comfortable with joining in the conversation. This is a panel that is open to discussion. Like I said, we have 5 discussion topics. And so we do encourage not only the panelists to have their discussions, but also anyone who's joined us today to join into the discussion. And you can do that by selecting a raise your hand reaction, which is down at the bottom of your screen under the icon reactions. It's a smiley face with a little plus sign. So if you click that, you can see a raise your hand feature, and one of our moderators will unmute your Zoom, and then you'll be able to contribute or to discuss with us. So before we begin the discussion, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Valerie Camarada. I am the Director of Programs and Grants here at the YWCA, and I'll be moderating tonight along with Samai Clark, who is the CHW, which is a community health worker, intern supervisor. So we'll be sort of going back and forth moderating for you guys tonight. And I also would like to introduce our panelists. And as I introduce each panelist, I'm going to give you an opportunity to just tell us, where you work and how your work relates to mental health and your work in mental health. So I'd like to start with Chris Marino from CMHA.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Marino. I'm Clinical Director of Outpatient Behavioral Health Services and School-Based Services for Community Mental Health Affiliates. We provide behavioral health services right here in New Britain, and been doing a lot of work with schools, directly talking to a lot of youth, a lot of parents. So really excited to hear some of the feedback from you all tonight.
Thanks, Chris. Next, I'd like to introduce Edie Lynn Cardona.
Hi everyone, I'm Edie Lynn Cardona. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I work with CMHA. I am the program coordinator for the multidimensional family therapy program. I also serve as an autism evaluator for the agency and sit on the local prevention council for the city of New Britain.
Thank you. Next up, I'd like to introduce Kim Fuller.
Good evening. I'm Kim Fuller. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I am founder and CEO of Fuller Life Concepts, and we're a mental health and wellness agency. I'm actually in California, so it's bright and shiny here.
Nice and sunny there.
It's gorgeous here, 90 degrees. And we here at Fuller Life Concepts, we focus on working with children and adolescents. And we primarily focus on working with trauma, anxiety, and depression. So I'm glad to be here.
Great, glad to have you. Thank you. I'd also like to introduce these lovely folks I have sitting behind me. This is a team of YWCA community health workers. These are teen trainees. Most of them go to high school at New Britain High, some of them at EC Goodwin, some of them at Classical. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves. And we'll start on this side and go around. And go ahead, girls, just speak up when it's your turn.
Hi, I'm Victoria Martinez, and I am a sophomore at Classical Magnet School, and I'm a CHW intern.
Hi, everyone. I'm Danjalisa Chaudhary, but you can call me Danji. I'm a sophomore in New Britain High School, and I'm a community health worker intern.
Hello, my name is Itzel Colon, and I'm a senior in New Britain High School, and I'm a CHW intern. Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm a junior in high school, and I'm a CHW intern. Hi, everybody. I'm Alina. I'm a junior in high school, and I'm a CHW intern.
Hi, I'm Tiana Lee. I'm a sophomore at UC Goodwin and I'm a CHW intern.
Hi, I'm Madison. I'm a junior at UC Goodwin Technical High School and I'm a CHW intern.
Thank you. So that is all of our panelists. And for those who just joined us, thank you so much for joining us. This is a COVID-19 real talk panel. So we're all about having a discussion on the real issues and the real feedback that we're getting from the community. Tonight's topic is mental health and how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected youth, students, and parents. So as I said when we first began, there is all of you are muted, but we have the capability to unmute you and we encourage you to interact in the discussion. We have about 5 discussion topics, and all you need to do is go down to the bottom of your Zoom screen. You'll see a little icon that's a smiley face with a plus sign. It's called reactions. If you click that, you'll be able to raise your hand. And if you raise your hand, we'll be able to call on you, unmute you, and we'd be very happy for you to engage in the conversation as we go along. Before we begin, however, our 5 discussion topics that we have scheduled for tonight, we wanted to take a short survey. So all of the people that have joined us tonight, you're going to see on your screen very shortly a brief survey that is completely anonymous. We will get results and share the results at the end, but we wanted to basically get your thoughts on your personal experiences that you've had with how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected mental health and your feelings on that before we begin our discussion tonight. So if our moderators could please put the survey up on the screen for our participants to go ahead and fill that out. It should take just 1 or 2 minutes, and then we'll go over the results and dive into our discussion topics.
All right, yeah, so I'm going to share my screen. I'll get a QR code up actually, so you guys can snap a picture of it on your phone, go right to the link there, and do the survey right on your phone. I'm also going to put the link in the chat if you would prefer to do it that way. All right, so I'll put the link in the chat and I'm going to share my screen now with you all. And you should see the QR code on your screen. And there are some questions that are, say, for parents, and there are also some questions that say for youth. So encourage participation from everyone. Nothing is required, but the more we get, the more discussions we can have. We have 12 or 13, actually just now, a 13th response. I see we have 14 participants. I know some people might be joining together on one screen and that's fine. But if we'd like, we can go ahead and start sharing the results now with everyone. And even if people are still going, we'll actually see your results come in live, so again, all of it's anonymous. But let's see. I need to change what I'm sharing. All right. So here's the results from the survey so far. And maybe I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit here so we can see a little bit more closely. Oh, 14th response just came in. So we can go through them together. And I don't know, Dawn, how much time we might have for some comments, reactions, maybe some brief ones.
We have a couple minutes.
Okay, great. So the first question was asking if any of the following affected you or your family during the COVID-19 pandemic, and we can see that nobody chose none. Right? So we know that we've all been affected by this in at least one way or another, and for many of us, we have a lot in common. The thing that we have the most in common was that we all, that 71% of us experienced some sort of emotional distress, and that seems to be the highest. So this discussion panel topic is, of course, very important. The results here speak for themselves. We see also, some of the higher rated ones here, peer relationship issues or a family member experiencing a COVID-related illness. We've all experienced so much in common, but we all know our experiences yet are so unique. And so I'd love to hear as we continue some of the reactions as we go. The second question was, have you experienced any of the following positive impacts? And this is really exciting to see too, because we know that the one way we fight through adversity and build resiliency is by finding hope, something to look forward to, something that we can feel really good about. And you can see here that nobody put none here either. So that's really exciting. That's really encouraging that even in the midst of so much happening up here, we all still felt really good about some things happening in our lives, some positive changes that we can point to. And that's really encouraging. Two things in particular that 10 of you felt was a positive impact was paying more attention to your personal physical health and mental health. So that's a really encouraging sign as well. And it's not a bad thing, right? It's a good thing to pay attention to our physical health and mental health. So for parents, this was a response of overall how well do you understand the impact COVID-19 has had on your children? 1 being not very well at all, and 5 being very well. And so, a somewhat even distribution, except that 3 out of the 8 parents who responded felt that they understood it very well. And then also asking about the confidence of the parents and the ability to respond to the stress your children are feeling and the conflicts that they are experiencing. How confident are you as a parent to be able to address these with them? And we see a little bit more variation. Still 3 parents felt very confident, but also 3 felt only somewhat confident in it. And we see this trend more to the higher, scores here of the next question of how overall concerned are they, or parents, with their children's mental health and or stress level as a result of the pandemic. And we see that nobody put a 1, nobody said very little. It looks like most of us as parents are acknowledging that we have some concern over the mental health of our children. And so for youth, I would love to see, how well do you feel your caregivers understand the impact COVID-19 has had on you? And so kind of interesting, distribution here. We had 1 said not very much at all, and we also had 1 youth say very much. But most of the answers fell somewhat in the middle. Right? So I'd love to hear any reactions, thoughts. We could definitely put that out there, Dawn, if we have a quick minute to do so.
Yes, of course.
This just serves as a little temperature check. As we continue through our discussions today, these results, will stay in the forefront of our minds and will hopefully guide some of the discussions as we go.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris, for going over the survey results so we can get kind of a temperature check of the people and the opinions that we have in our current group. I would like to get into our 5 discussion questions that we have tonight. And I'm going to have Samai Clark, who's our CHW intern supervisor. I'm going to have her read out those discussion questions. Now, the discussion questions are designed to address one of our panelists who are going to allow to speak first. But then we really want to open it up. Anyone in the discussion, anyone in the chat, anyone in the group can either raise their hand and be unmuted and contribute to the discussion, or you can post something in the chat and we'll monitor that and read questions for you if you feel more comfortable that way. So I'm going to have Samai go ahead and read our first topic discussion.
Well, thanks, Val. Good evening, and I'll be moderating the discussion topics for tonight. So the first question that we have is for Eddie Lynn. Can you identify the top mental health trends you're seeing in school-age kids/teens as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you, Samai. So some of the top mental health trends that I've noticed and seen in school age kids have been an increase in social anxiety, where teens are struggling to communicate effectively with their peers and especially in group settings. They may be forgetting how to make friends. They may be extremely fearful of being judged by others. And other mental health trends that I've seen are increase in just generalized anxiety and lack of self-esteem, some increase in depressive symptoms, self-harming behaviors, increase in substance use, and teens trying substances for the first time ever. And some of the evidence that we have for this is we've been getting an increase in mental health referrals for just individual therapy for the very first time during this span of the pandemic. And another instance is our hospitals are very much flooded. They're flooded with children needing and teens needing mental health services. And the last point is that we've been getting daily calls from pediatricians, parents, schools, just with very much concern of the mental health of their child.
Thank you, Eddie Lynn. Does any of our panelists want to comment before I move on? Okay. I see someone's hands up. Okay. Kim?
Yes. One of the things that came to mind while Eddie Lynn was talking was here in California, there has also been a significant increase in the number of people seeking mental health services. And I think what's interesting is that one, we are focused on children and adolescents, but we've also got a lot more family referrals. So we're now seeing more families as a group than just like individual, like a child or an adolescent or cohorts. And the other thing that we also notice is that we're seeing a lot more couples. And so I know that it has a family impact, and that even though traditionally we would not necessarily see couples in our programs, because we're focused on children and adolescents, we of course open our doors to whoever needs us. And so that's another thing that I think is very important to kind of highlight.
Thank you, Kim.
And I'm wondering if any of the teens would like to speak on something that we had discussed when we were putting together this panel, and that's their ability to communicate or socialize. Do you, and I'm talking to you, but you're behind me, but I'm talking to you. Do you ladies feel like you have any reactions to how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected your ability to socialize after being in quarantine for so long?
Yeah, I agree. I personally think that being in quarantine for 2 years is just like you're used to texting or calling people via FaceTime. So it's like definitely harder to communicate with people. Like it's hard to start conversations and to continue them.
Following off of what Ganji said, I feel like it's a completely different setting to go from seeing your teachers and your classmates through a computer or being put in like a chat with them together to do group assignments. And it's a change to go back to school and having to be around them and not knowing how to socialize before the pandemic.
You guys all raised some really, really good points.
Exactly. And those are the trends that we've seen exactly what you're saying. And this is why this discussion is so important to just bring those up. And you guys, I just commend you guys for just speaking up and saying that for everyone to hear, because not many people are doing that right now.
So we want to take a pause just to give the audience an opportunity to comment or question. If there's any comments or questions. Okay. Well, thank you all. So the next topic, this next question is directed to Kim. In your experience, has online learning, long-term quarantining, or social distancing had any negative effects on teens or kids?
Can we unmute Kim?
Sorry, I was doing too much. Too many buttons to click. So to echo what was just spoken by some of the teens, that yes, there has definitely been an impact on online learning, quarantining, and social distancing. And I think they each have a different kind of reaction or response, but they're so commingled, it's kind of hard to separate them out, but I'll try to make a few different comments. Because when it comes to online learning, you know, some of the challenges were, of course, technology, right? Because yes, it was a great idea to think, oh, let's just put all the children online. But then of course we ran into a lot of challenges, whether that was you didn't have adequate supplies, you didn't have adequate technology. Why is that a problem? That's a problem because that meant many of the students may have missed some of the learning. So then if you miss some of the learning after 18 months or two years, depending on your schooling, you go back into the classroom and now you are feeling like you're behind. So of course, that's going to cause a lot of like anxiety and insecurity and confidence challenges. Some of the other challenges with quarantining was also that some families were able to continue working, right? Because they were able to shift to be online. And some families, they missed out on financial opportunities because their businesses were closed. So that brings a whole family stress, right? And then if the family did have a parent or guardian who had to leave, and that left all the children alone doing their quarantining and social learning, online learning on the computer by themselves, sometimes that puts some of the students in the position of being parents, right? So that meant that they were missing out on their own learning while they were trying to kind of monitor maybe younger siblings, or if there was any family members who were ill due to COVID or any other reasons, right? Some of the things that is wonderful about the fact that our human bodies, right? We have an autonomic nervous system. And that is the part of our body that tries to keep us regulated, keep us safe, calm, and happy. And what happened in this scenario is that we were all feeling a sense of danger, right? That was physical danger, right? We were always worried about being sick, but there was also the danger of it, like kind of like emotional danger, right? Where you were worried about, like if you went back to school or you went back into the community, you're worried about getting sick, but you also had like a little bit of social anxiety that was mentioned at the top of this discussion. And that means that you're always hyper alert, always scanning and looking for danger, whether that's emotional danger or physical danger. And that is dangerous for our bodies to be at high alert for too long. Right. And the result is that we do have more anxieties, we do have more depressions, we are constantly tense. And so all of that causes you to want to kind of like remove yourself. So then you're going to feel disconnected, You're going to sometimes maybe feel inadequate. It may be trouble reintegrating because you're not quite sure, like, I haven't been in front of people for so long. How do I feel? Did I gain weight? Did I lose weight? Do I now have a pimple? Do I not? So there's all kinds of challenges that go along with, you know, the fact that we were social distancing, we were quarantining, we were online learning. And so I think it's really important to remember that not only was this a global pandemic, but the impact on us was biology as well, right? Because our bodies were designed to keep us safe. And here we are in a scenario for an extended period of time where we did not feel safe. So yes, I think it definitely did have a problem with concentration, with being able to focus, with being able to reintegrate, and even memory became an issue as well. So those are some of the challenges that I think we have all faced over the last 2 years.
Thank you so much, Kim, for that answer. That was amazing. Do any of our other panelists have anything that they would like to add? Chris has his hands raised.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've had a privilege to be able to speak to a lot of kids before the reopening of school this past year. And one of the things that came up was a lot of the social anxiety. We've already talked about a little bit, but kind of diving deeper into that, it was the fact that they haven't seen these kids or even been expected to interact with the majority of kids in their grade for over a year. I mean, most of the kids were able to stay within their cliques, little cohorts or tight peer groups, and they were able to choose their interactions so much more. They have so much more freedom with that. And now they were getting thrust back into these classrooms, making eye contact again, sitting next to again, having to share time with again. Kids that they haven't seen or identified with or had to problem solve with in a very long time. And you know, Kim had mentioning and the kids asking, do I have a pimple? How does my hair look? You know, we're all very self-aware of that anyway. As humans, we get feedback from our peers in our environment to know how we're doing. And kids haven't had that feedback. They kind of lost that over a period of time. So there was a lot of anxiety over, I'm going to be back in person. I'm not behind a screen. I can't use a filter. I can't turn my camera off. I have to present myself in a very different way that I haven't been asked to with people who I haven't been asked to talk to in a very long time. And so I think a lot of kids had a lot of anxiety about that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chris. So we're going to pause for any audience comments or questions.
Open it up to the teams too.
Oh, matter of fact, yeah. Do you guys have anything that you would like to add to that?
I do want to add something. So regarding going back to school, I feel like after 2 years, we didn't talk to so many friends that like being back was like restarting again. Like we're here now. Do I really know this person? Because I don't know them from middle school, but what about now? So I feel like going back with those connections with so many people, it's like you see them in the hallways and be like, oh hi, but that's it. Then you keep walking. Like connections were like really lost. Now it's like about making new friends and trying to reconnect.
I agree with the Donji.
Anything else?
Do you agree with Donji?
Anything else? Okay.
Kim?
Kim?
Yes, that whole, I guess, reintegrating, right? Because it was 2 years pretty much, right? So many of the students that we worked with went from maybe elementary school to middle school, and they skipped the kind of like 4th or 5th grade, and all of a sudden they're in 6th or 7th grade, or they missed part of middle school and they jumped right to high school. So not only was there that challenge of just going to school and, do I know that person from 5th grade or 6th grade or whatever, but it's also now you're in a different developmental stage, right? You're in a different level of independence, and you're in a, it's awkward to be a preteen or a teenager. So all of that coupled, I think, just made it even more, I think, intense and a bigger response that normally you wouldn't have had.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all. The next question is directed to Chris. In your experience, how has the temporary cancellation of group events, such as graduations or team sports, affected the mental health of kids and teens?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you, Smai. So, adolescents especially, we'll talk about adolescents here, I think. primarily. We have a nice group of them here that can hopefully have some thoughts on this as well. You know, it's being an adolescent is a really exciting time, but also a very scary time. You know, I think many of us here reflected back on our adolescence. We would probably reminisce first about all of the things that were really exciting, or all the things that we really enjoyed, or all the things we're really interested in, all of our friendships. But then we'd also have those memories that we were like, wow, I wish I forgot that. You know, and so it's a complicated time, but a really exciting one where we get to explore ourselves, explore our relationships, explore all of the possibilities. Sports, clubs, activities, any types of like graduation, ceremony, rituals, all of those things help us explore ourselves, help us explore our possible selves. Who can we become? And that's like the most exciting thing about being an adolescent. The COVID-19 pandemic kind of took that away from a lot of teens. When we see that a lot of kids came into therapy for the first time, the majority of those kids had internalizing issues like anxiety and depression. More often than not, they were related to the fact that they couldn't see their friends as much, and they couldn't express themselves in the ways that they identified with the most, like sports, clubs, activities. That was the core of like who they were and how they expressed themselves freely and most comfortably, and that was taken from them. And I also think about all the things that kind of like signal that we're growing up, and that things like getting a job, you know, getting our license, having more freedoms, those were kind of taken away and kind of put on hold for a bit for a lot of teens as well. And I think that that had a pretty significant impact on our older adolescents. And I think that's where we saw most of the increase in those internalizing issues, including some of the more significant risky type behaviors like abusing substances, social isolation, increased thoughts of wanting to harm themselves or end their own life. And we kind of like met with these kids and talked with these kids, and we see a lot of the root was that their independence and identity was paused, or they felt like it was stripped from them. Mm-hmm. And with our younger kids, you know, we saw that there was all young kids rely on structure. They need routines, you know, and they need play. And that's how kids learn about the world. That's how kids learn about themselves growing up, is through those types of interactions. Think about simple games like tag, you know, and what that even teaches a kid in terms of boundaries and interactions and such meaningful skills. Routines, structure, play, those were all taken away and put on hold for the younger kids also. And they had to reintegrate in many different ways back to a structured setting. That was very, very difficult for them. And so I think that's how both age groups were really affected by some of the temporary cancellations of things that gave us structure and identity.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%.
Open it up to the team.
Do you guys have anything that you would like to add?
Sure, I'll go first. So I wanted to add like my personal like experience doing it. When the pandemic started, I was in 8th grade, so I didn't have my graduation. I know it's not a big deal because it's 8th grade, but you know, it was kind of like a big deal for me, and I didn't have it. That kind of like just motivated me, but at the same time, it was frustrating. Like my grades were so good at that time, like I really wanted to like get my certificate normally, have a normal graduation, but I didn't have that. So that was frustrating at the time, but now it was kind of like a motivation to like still be doing good for that high school graduation that I'm gonna have, hopefully. And regarding to sports and other activities, in middle school, I used to do volleyball and I used to sing, I used to do chorus. So during the pandemic, obviously we all went online. It was like chorus just wasn't the same, obviously, because we were like through computers, singing through computers. That's just not it. It doesn't make sense. So I don't know. I just kind of like lost that hobby that I used to have. But like I found new things, even though I don't do that anymore. Now I found a CHW group program, and like if it wasn't for quarantine, I know that I wouldn't like be here right now. Like during quarantine, we didn't have stuff to do. We were just stuck at home. And then when I saw that email that I could do something else, it was just, yeah, let me just do it. Like I wanted to do something, and it actually teach me a lot. So I used to play volleyball, and then because of quarantine, my mom was like, "It's coming. No, you can't go out." Like I was fully remote, but I wanted to play volleyball, so I had to go to school. some way. When I went back to volleyball after 2 years, it was like, am I doing this right? Like, am I gonna be capable of keep playing like I used to? Like, it was scary, you know? But afterwards, like, everything is getting better, like, thankfully. But it was scary, and definitely it had a lot of changes in our daily basis.
To add on to what Danji was saying, my mom personally didn't feel like it was safe enough for me and my sister to go back when the pandemic started. So I missed my first day of freshman year for high school. And I feel like that's a big step, like missing your middle school graduation to move on to high school. My first day in high school was virtual, so I didn't have that experience of like being lost in the hallways, finding my new like classroom, making new friends. And I've identified as an athlete like all my life, and I missed 2 years of volleyball due to the pandemic. So when I went back to playing, adding to what Danji said, it felt like, am I still an athlete? Am I still capable of doing this? Am I still as good as I used to be? And I just feel like going from being virtual to going back, adding on to what our previous discussions, it brings a lot of social anxiety and fear of making new friends and being around big groups of people, whether it's being scared of getting sick or creating those emotional boundaries.
Anyone else?
So I can repeat the question for you. Oh, Eddie Lynn is going to go ahead. I'm just going to repeat.
Sorry.
Because we've had a really robust discussion, but the question is, in your experience, how has the temporary cancellation of group events affected the mental health of teens? Go ahead, Eddie.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback off of what the girls were saying. Some of the things that we've seen is when the kids were going back to sports and their extracurricular activities, they had a really tough time with their self-confidence and really kind of just having a hard time like believing in themselves. And we had to remind them, like, you know, put yourself back out there, and you know, you have muscle memory, you can do this. And it was a lot of encouragement that we had to do, but it was tough on the kids because, you know, most kids, because we were in isolation for so long, they weren't using those muscles, and they weren't doing the routines that they would normally do in their sports. So it was really tough to get back into that routine and do the sport that they were used to. So I just wanted to emphasize what you girls were saying as well, that we saw it also.
I just wanted to piggyback. I have teenagers and elementary schooler, and I've seen the change in both of them. For my elementary schooler, she's used to her cousins coming over, playing every day, you know, and then to move that to using an iPad was completely like unheard of. Like, she would complain every day that she was lonely and that she needed friends and things like that. And I'm like, well, we're in the house with you, but that wasn't enough, because learning how to build connections and make friends. And she was struggling because it's like telling a kid, oh, you have to use the computer to do schoolwork. And she's like, well, I'm in my bedroom, so I can lay down. And I'm like, no, but you're in class, so you need to sit at the table. So, you know, that was a big thing for the elementary school. And then the teen, because they kind of like lost interest. Like, just, it was no motivation. They just felt like this was like they were in prison, kind of, sort of. Because I was one of those moms, like, we're not going outside, we can't do this, we can't do that. Because me, myself, my anxiety was like at an all-time high. I'm like, I don't want to lose my kids. I don't, you know, so we're all we have. And it created a big divide between our family members, because some, you know, wanted to meet and others were like, no. So I think that it has affected everyone as a whole.
Kim, Kim, I see you got your hand raised there. There she goes.
Okay. So one of the things that I just thought of, and when you guys were talking about sports, right, is that here in our community, some of the sports didn't come back yet. And so another challenge is that athletes who, like, say, were used to playing, like, say, soccer or something, now had to try another sport. because all of our sports haven't, hopefully this upcoming year, they will all return. But because they wanted to stay active, now they have to try something even completely different. And that could be very awkward and discouraging. And then I know I don't want you to minimize. I think one of the teens talked about, oh, I just missed, 8th grade graduation or something. I mean, like, I remember mine clearly, it's a great memory, even though it was an awkward time. And I think it's unfortunate that everyone won't have those kind of memories. And I have a daughter, and one of the things that she missed out on was at the end of that first year, right, where we were gone and we came back, we were gone, whatever, they had accumulated, it was towards the end of the school year. So they had accumulated enough, what do they call them? Certificates. I don't remember what they called them, something bucks. And at the end of the year, you cashed in all your bucks and you got to go on like a year-end trip, or you got to get a couple of days off of school. You got to miss homework. You had some kind of activity you were working towards, and all of that was just gone. So she, the other day, was reflecting on the fact, she goes, I had won all these bucks. I never got to use them. And so all of that is really disappointing and discouraging, and it makes you feel kind of, in a way, you lost a sense of control and identity and maybe excitement. And so I don't want that to be discounted at all, because it's all very important.
Absolutely. All right, so we are going to pause for any audience comments or questions.
Okay, just give me
All right.
give me a little bit of time.
Well, thank you all. We're going to move on to the next question. And this question is directed to the YWCA team, CHWs. So how can parents support their children and or recognize signs that youth need additional mental health supports? How can parents support their children and or recognize signs that youth need additional mental health supports?
Maybe like isolating, if we're isolated, maybe something is happening.
So recognizing
Yeah.
signs such as when a child isolates themselves.
Becomes like more distant, doesn't talk to you as much.
Okay.
Doesn't check in as much.
So you think parents should be aware that there's certain signs that they should
Yeah.
look for. And I'm not going to skip anybody, but I do want to ask some of our panelists, where would parents learn those signs that Maddie's talking about of, I'm recognizing there's something different with my kid. I mean, your kid, but then there are some specific things such as isolating more than normal. Where would parents get these tools to kind of recognize? And then we'll go back for another comment, okay? Chris, yeah.
I was first going to say discussions like these are always helpful. Right. But reaching out to supports mainly at schools, right? Schools often give, I know the New Britain website has a school district website has a link directly to social emotional learning resources, which is just fantastic. So I think directing parents to those types of resources directly on school websites. I mean, the internet's great, but I think when we go to the people we trust, that's always should be our first go-to, our first step. So trusting the professionals in our communities, reaching out to the YWCA, CMHA, other resources and the experts in this stuff. Don't be afraid to reach out to the experts. If we have a cold symptom, we go to our primary care physician because they're the experts. They're going to be the ones to be able to tell us about these symptoms, what to look out for, and how to get better. And so therapists do the same thing. We treat mental health the same way we do our physical health. So reach out to those experts, use the resources, and talk to your kids. Right. I think that's where parents are going to find the most information about these signs and what to do and how to react and what to look out for is listen to your kids' cues, picking up on them, either by observing or actively listening.
And then we'll take Edie, Lynn, and then I'm going to bring it back to the teams to see if they have more to add.
I just want to add to what Chris was saying. I think all the resources that he was providing are wonderful, and parents should absolutely do that. And in addition, if parents did want to reach out to other community support, like if they were involved in a church organized, a member of a church, they can always reach out to those leaders if they wanted to do that, or someone else in their community, like the Parks and Rec. Those, counselors there are always more than welcome to help out. So community representatives are always willing to help parents out as well.
Thank you. So the question, so we're going to bring it back to the teens. The question is, how can parents support their children or recognize signs that youth need additional mental health supports? Ladies? Raise your hand, because there's we got a lot of input on this one, right? We got a lot of heat behind me. What's okay, Itzel.
I feel like what Chris said is something like very big, like talking to your kids and listening to them without like complaining or like taking away their feelings, like just like saying like, oh, why do you feel like that? Things like that make you stay closed. Like you don't open up, you don't talk to anybody, you just keep it to yourself, and that's damaging. I feel like that's a lot of
Don't
damage.
minimize what your kid is feeling.
Exactly.
Yeah. She's saying don't minimize what your kid is feeling. And then when they're telling you something that they want to express, you have to be able to be patient to draw that out of them.
To piggyback off of what Excel is saying, I feel like as a teen, something a lot of teens struggle with is knowing you need help, but not knowing where to get the help or what help you need, and trying to talk to your parent, and your parent necessarily is just like not giving you the most positive attitude or not the most positive comforting attitude. And I feel like throughout the pandemic, what most teens have needed is somebody to talk to in a comforting environment where you feel like, yes, I have somebody to talk to, I have somewhere, a safe place to go when I feel these emotions.
Yeah, so what they say, I also wanted to add, like, sometimes having those type of conversations with your parents are like awkward, like you don't know what to say. It's just like, are they gonna like take this the right way or not? So maybe even like doing family activities together, like watching a movie or talking while you're eating dinner, like that like gets you to like be more confident, trust more in your parents.
Yeah. To piggyback
Alina.
what Donji said, I would say maybe try to find activities that you think your child will like and do those with your child so that they can talk to you. I would also say maybe just see the changes in your child, like not just how they act, but how they'll talk differently, they'll act more down, they won't seem like themselves. So pay attention to that for your child.
And I think, go ahead.
I
told you this was hot. This is a hot topic over here.
I think the smallest things mean the most to teens, like even just laying down with your kid and just being like, how was your day, or is there anything I can do better as a parent, or anything I can do better to support you? I feel like those are the small things that will make you appreciate your parent and will make you feel like you have somebody that's genuinely there for you and that genuinely cares about your feelings and isn't there to invalidate them, but to help you through them.
Sumai.
So I can't talk from a teen's perspective, but I feel like from a parent's perspective, that a lot of the time teens, our children, don't really understand what we are going through as adults because we mask it and we carry on like nothing's going on. So we don't address their issues the way we should be because we're still trying to deal with our own issues. So that's why I feel like that family dimensional therapy that you were speaking about, Edie, is like a really, really good tool to be used, because me personally, I don't understand my teens all the time. And sometimes I, like during the pandemic, I went through my own stuff, my own stressors, my own depression, and I didn't really know how to help someone else go through what they're going through because I'm hurting personally. So I think that as a family, we need to figure out how we make this work together.
We have two hands raised up top. So Edie Lynn, I'm sorry, Chris's hand was up first. Ladies first. Okay, Edie Lynn. Can you mute? There we go.
There we go. Okay. Just going off of what Sumai was saying, you are absolutely correct. When you talk about, parents going through their own stuff and then teens going through their own stuff, the only way that it works and the only way to build connection is if both parents and teens are working on it together at the same time. And if, both parties are willing to make that change and, together become that unified front in order to make things work and make a change, because that's the only way that you guys will build connection. And what one of the girls was saying was, just sitting down and watching a movie, that's going to mean the most. The little things mean the most, because kids are watching. They're watching your every move. They're watching what steps you take next and what you're saying to them. So if you're trying to, if you're putting out that positive energy to them, they're going to notice that. They're going to pick up and hold on to that, and it's going to change their attitude as well. So I love that, Sumai, that you were able to recognize that in yourself and able to work on that, because I'm sure that may have made all the difference within your family. And that's what it's all about, is making those small changes as a parent first and foremost, and setting that beautiful example for your child in order for them to make that change for them too.
Thank you, Edie Lynn. And I want all the parents and or teenagers in attendance, please know that we're looking for your personal experiences. There is no right or wrong answer in this discussion. I'm going to take my next hand up, which is Chris. Oh, there we go.
I unmuted and then I got muted.
Okay.
So, I mean, there are so many great things being shared on this topic. I mean, we could probably do a whole discussion for an hour and a half just on this alone, I think. But, one of the things that we do when we first bring in a new family to our clinic, throughout the intake process, we give them assessments. And there's one assessment in particular that we give to kids. We give the same exact assessment to the parents. And same exact questions, and it rates like their level of severity of like the symptoms of what's going on, right? And so there's two areas on the scale that we look at. We look at something called externalizing behaviors, which are like the yelling, screaming, fighting, arguing, stuff that's like in your face. Parents are always so aware of that. And kids are always aware of that too, because they're probably getting punished for it, and they're very aware of like those types of behaviors. We always see the biggest differences with the internalizing stuff, the anxiety and depression, where we have the kids rate very high levels of anxiety and depression. But then we look at the parents' rating of their kid, and it's so much lower. It's like, where's the miss? What's happening? So first of all, this is very common, right? Kids, adults too, people don't typically like to talk about those internalizing issues, the anxiety and depression. Feels kind of icky, feels kind of yucky, right? And we are really worried that people aren't going to understand, even our parents. And for the parents' perspective, it's kind of hard to see under the surface. So spending the extra time with your kids, doing things they enjoy, checking in, how was your day today? Spending that extra time helps you pick up on the little nuances, the little cues, the little thing your child does that tells you that something is off. And there's like your port of entry, like there's your in. That's when you take advantage of, hey, I noticed that you do this sometimes when you're stressed. What's going on? But without picking up on those cues, we're going to continue to see differences in like how they're reporting. The kids are going to continue to report that there's these issues inside, but the parents are going to be unaware. And to Sumai's point, throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, guess what? Parents were also experiencing a lot of internalizing issues too. Mm-hmm. And the kids weren't aware of those also. So now we have both parties really struggling to express themselves.
Thank you, Chris. Our next hand raise is Kim.
Yeah, I think what came up for me was the whole idea of being able to tolerate. So as a parent, one of the challenges that I think that sometimes is scary is sometimes you don't want to necessarily dig into whatever's happening for your child because you're not sure if you're going to be able to tolerate their honesty, their reaction and their response. And that's one of the kind of challenges that we deal with in our family sessions, is that the parents kind of like, oh, he or she's quiet, they're to themselves, it must be, they're fine. But then when you delve in, you find out there's all kinds of, angst and feelings that come up, and the parents are like not sure that they can handle it or manage it. And that's not, you don't have to, I guess is my thing. You don't have to manage it on your own. There are plenty of us out here, right? Mental health workers, people, like she said, in your spiritual community, coaches, there's all kinds of people at the school counselors who can help you to manage any type of emotional reaction that you and or your child has, and you don't have to do it alone. Because one of the biggest challenges that I wrote down is that, anxiety and depression live in the dark. And so when we're quiet or we kind of withdraw and go inside, that's where it really lives and it festers. And the minute you give it a voice and you give it light, it starts to diminish. And so being afraid and feeling you're not able to tolerate or manage it, just being available, just being a sounding board, just being there, like everyone was saying, for like the little things, begin to allow both the parent and the child to kind of open up and not be like stuck in the dark.
Thank you, Kim. And before we move on, I just want to bring this to our panelists. So when parents do sit down and they do recognize that there are some supports that my child does need, we have these discussions, we've done our family time, and we really have identified there are some things that are beyond my capabilities of helping. Where can those parents turn, or where could they search? There's always the fear of, this is going to cost me an arm and a leg. It's not, is my insurance going to cover it? Is there some type of service that I can look into? So I want to bring that to our panelists and just know that it is a stress for parents to not know where to go or if they can even afford an option. You're thinking.
Chris, there you go, Chris.
So, I think a couple places that I would recommend parents to turn to, especially if they're thinking about, the time that it might take to find somebody, insurance coverage, some of those logistical barriers and financial barriers, things that could actually get in the way. Talking to like the people who you already feel connected to and trust, like your own doctor or your child doctor. Those people typically know the ins and outs of things like insurance and how services work and who might be in the community that, might be a good fit. But then also the schools again. I would trust live people before we start digging around the internet too much. But again, I think most school websites and have some really great resources. There's also statewide resources too, like 211 and government websites, town websites that typically have immediate access to local resources, and they can help you, live people or online. But at least it's it's people that you know and trust and that are local versus a form of anonymous people on the internet. So.
Thank you. And I have a hand raised, Kim.
Yeah, I want to kind of piggyback on what Chris was saying, right, about being careful about the internet searches and really looking to resources that are in your community. In our county, we've really spent a lot of monies towards mental health. And so you can look at your county and your local city or town, because there may be resources that are available or coming available that offer low or no cost mental health services, whether that would be individual sessions for children, adolescents, parents, family. And even in our community, we're starting to really address substance abuse and use for low and no cost, as well as special communities, right? Like veterans, older adults, LGBTQ+, et cetera. So I think in addition to going to your local physician or clergy, you also can look to maybe a city or town or state website for additional resources that may be low or no cost.
Thank you.
So now we're going to pause for any audience comments or questions. Well, thank you all. The next question,
Final question.
the final question is directed to all of the panelists. So what are some positive changes you've seen in kids that have been a result of the COVID-19 pandemic? Because we talked about some of the negatives now. What are some of the positives? Kim?
I want to go first. The first thing that I noticed is resilience and the ability to handle it, manage it, work through it, try something new. Like I said, in our community, everything hasn't opened up in the same way. And so many of the youth and parents have had to try new things, right? Go to new places. One of the things that was hilarious to me when the pandemic first started, you guys may have seen this also, is everybody started going for walks at the beginning, right? Because you're so pent up and we're stuck. And I looked around, I was like, I couldn't believe how many people had dogs. I was like, what? Like, where were all these people before? Like, were they walking their pets? Right. I know, sidebar. But I think that just, being able to try new things. Like I went to the bike shop to get some, inner tube, because biking also became really popular. So more families were buying bicycles and doing that kind of activity together. So I saw that kind of activities that came out of COVID. I think there was many ways in which it brought us together. It brought us more closely in terms of community. We would be outside having conversations with neighbors we never knew before, having play dates with kids literally across the street versus driving them across town. So I think there's a lot of resilience that came out of it.
Great. Chris?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, just by the results of the survey we did in the beginning, you could see that a lot of people had positive changes as a result of the pandemic. My mind immediately goes to the word resiliency. I think of the word adaptability. If we were to give a poll out pre-COVID to both kids or adults that said, imagine if you had to wear a mask on your face wherever you went, do you think you could do it? Nobody would say yes. They'd be like, oh my gosh, on a scale of 1 to 10, how anxiety provoking would that be? How frustrating would that be? It would be off the charts, their responses. People would not even be able to think about living like that. But guess what? We did it. We did it. And for a lot of us, we're still doing it. And we've adapted. I think a lot of us have been reflecting back and be like, wow, I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about the people in my lives, in our communities, and how we all can bounce back from something like this. I think people have been overwhelmingly impressed. For me personally, being so impressed by our youth, by our kids. The fact that they can go to school all day, wear these masks, learn, focus, socialize. Now, yes, we've already talked about all the challenges, but they're going and they're learning and they're doing and they're smiling and they're enjoying things, right? We can't miss that. We can't miss that those good things are continuing to happen for a lot of kids, a lot of people. So I think resiliency and I think adaptability, it's just been really, really impressive.
Edie, Lynn?
I guess for me, as I think back to the beginning of the pandemic, I think on a little bit of a smaller scale, and I think about some of the kids that we served in our MDFT program that did not have technology. So a lot of families did not have technology to get onto the internet and do their virtual classes. And now, because of this, almost all kids have laptops, tablets to do their classes. Kids now, oh my God, the things that kids can do now, you guys are so smart. You guys come up with so innovative in the things that you can do and so creative because you've learned so much throughout the pandemic. And, if I need something if I can't figure something out, the first person I go to is my 11-year-old because I know that she can figure it out before I can. So I think you guys have grown so much more because of it. And like Kim was saying, like Chris was saying, you guys are so resilient. And I'm proud of you guys. And I can say that we are proud of you.
Thank you so much. So I'd like to open it up to the teens. What are some positive things that have come out of the COVID-19 pandemic for you guys?
I feel like realizing who I am
Okay, Tiana Lee. Yes, girl.
and like realizing like the type of like person I want to be and the person I want, like the people I want to hang around. And like, that just kind of opened my eyes.
Wow. So that's
Like,
a big
thinking
reflection.
about like now it's like I'm growing up. I need to see who I want to be.
That's a really great personal reflection.
Donji?
Donji.
So I feel like with these 2 years, we have like a gap between school and like leaving. So now I feel like personally, I don't know, like guess we can all relate. Like now that everything is going back to normal, like we wanna like do so much stuff, we wanna take advantage of life. Like before it was like, okay, I'm gonna just go to school and I'm gonna go back home because I'm tired. Now it's like those 2 years, I feel like I was living the same day all over again. And now I just want to experience so many things, and I feel like we have a lot of more opportunities now to do the pandemic.
I think something that I gained from the pandemic that was very positive was that I learned a lot about myself that I didn't know before. Since I was isolating for so long, I guess I found a new person, and it's just like I think it's really amazing to discover like who you are as a person and to surround yourself with new people and to see your like full potential coming like together. So I think that's something that we can almost all agree on, that over the past couple months over the pandemic, we have all grown as people in one way or another.
Yeah, to add what Tiana Lee and Victor were saying about learning about yourself, I feel like during this pandemic, for me personally, I've learned more about what makes me happy outside of people, like what I could do for myself and with myself that will make me happy, that I don't have to be in the company of people, that I could just be happy and content with my self. I would also say that I learned about new things that I like that doesn't necessarily have to involve always going somewhere or doing something, but I could do it at home, like in the comfort of my home, instead of just going out, especially right now.
I agree with Alina. I found a lot of activities that I enjoy doing on my own with myself, and I feel like it's a lot easier for me now to do things on my own than it was before, because over the pandemic I had to enjoy my own company. I didn't really have a choice besides the people that I lived with. So I feel like that's something new that I learned and gained from the pandemic.
I agree with Victoria.
I saved so much
Like
money
before,
going
I
out
used to
something.
be like, oh, I want to go out with this, and that, or do this, and that with this person. I never thought about doing something like by myself, like enjoying myself, like your own company. Exactly, do my own thing. I always depended like on everybody else. If somebody couldn't go, I will be sad, and So using that time like helped me find new hobbies and all that. Yeah.
I feel like the people that like we were before the pandemic started, like we're not the same anymore. Like we all just like grew in different ways.
I would say I'm finding myself and being isolated. It was kind of like a huge thing for me. Like I'm not really like a talker person, but like CHW like really helped me. So
Thank you. And one of the things that the youth have shared with me that I'll share with you guys is that before, when they had sports or they had a club or they had a clique, they had an identity. They had a support system that they knew was going to be there for them. And when those activities were not available, as they were saying, they looked inside themselves for a new source of support and a new support system, whether it be in their family members or inside themselves. And so that growth of personal support system and personal confidence, I've noticed in, as one of the things that the students have really reflected on.
Okay, so we are going to pause again for any audience comments or questions. So during our last few minutes, I wanted to provide our panelists an opportunity for any last thoughts, comments, questions.
That includes you guys.
That includes you guys. No?
I think that this was like wonderful, just like talking about everything that we went through, because I feel like now that everything's coming back to normal, nobody's just like really looking back to what we went through, you know? And now it's just like how much we grew as a community, not only individually, but like as a community as a whole, is like, it's impressive.
We have a voice, so like right now we can express ourselves.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, this is always a privilege to be able to do things like this. But to continue the conversation, like two of you had just mentioned, that we need to keep talking about what we've been through and that how we've grown and what comes next. Right? What do we look forward to? What are we hopeful for? What are we going to accomplish this year? We take all the experiences in the past year with us, but it's all that serves now is that this is a reminder of what we've been able to overcome and what we've learned about ourselves. And all of those skills, all of those qualities, they come with us when we accomplish new things. And so we need to continue the conversations like this, and it's always a privilege to be a part of them. So,
Thank you, Chris. And Kim?
Yeah, I agree with Chris in that it's been an honor to be here and speak and hear and listen to the different ideas and opinions. I think the one thing that really came out of this pandemic is a lot of innovation in terms of the way that we see ourselves and see others, the ability to pivot and, kind of, shift, on a dime is amazing. And I really enjoy hearing what the youth have said tonight. And so thank you for having me, and it's been an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Edie, excuse me.
I just wanted to say thank you for having me a part of this panel discussion. I was very impressed with what the youth had to say, and I can't wait to see what you do next. Don't stop advocating for yourself and your community. You can do it, and I want to be a part of whatever you have to come, because we should continue the conversation, and let's keep discussing mental health, because you matter and your mental health matters.
This is just one of many, just for the record.
Good.
Thanks, ladies.
Anything else? No?
Thank you for like being
Yeah.
part of this.
Thank
honestly.
you.
It was
Yeah.
really nice hearing the different opinions actually from adults too, because like normally we only hear from us, you know? So it was really good to have this conversation. Thank you.
Wonderful. And thank you all so much. I just want to take the opportunity to thank you all for your time, for serving on our panel, for your discussion, for your comments, and your direction. If you look in the chat, there are some resources for anyone who would like some further information, or if they wanted to reach back out to get some clarification, or just ask questions, or to stay connected in any way, or to work on future projects. So, oh, thank you. We have a comment. Thank you. Yeah, I know we get comments. So if you'd like to get involved or learn more, please look at the resources in the comments. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. And like I said, this is a series. This is number 2 of our series. We will come out with more. So would really love if you guys, wherever you did see the information about this, to share with more communities. We'd like to branch it out a little wider. Thank you, everybody, so much, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Wait.